This is Josh here at Cody Cove Fruit Farm and Nursery, and here in Central Florida we're having one of our coolest mornings yet of the year. It's October 20th today, and that cool air is telling us that it's time to harvest our taro crop. So this video is about taro growing in Central Florida, and more specifically this particular variety, which I've discovered does very well for us, and we get a lot of food out of it. So a lot of people try to grow taro in Florida, and I've heard a lot of people say the same thing that used to happen to me, which is that I grow great looking plants, but then when it's time to harvest, there's really not a lot there. So several years ago, I was at a farmer's market, and there was a Puerto Rican man selling taro, and I assumed it was imported, and I asked him where it came from, and he said he grew it in his yard just 10 minutes down the road, and he had brought the variety from Puerto Rico. So I bought some pieces and planted them and got really good yields the first year, and since then I've been figuring out how to grow this variety of taro even better, and I'm very impressed with this variety, and I'm hoping that this is something that other people will be able to grow too. So taro is one of the 4 major root crops of the world. We have cassava, yams, and sweet potato, and after that, in the most widely cultivated list would be taro and malanga, which is related to taro. So I'm going to dig up a plant here, or maybe 2, and just show what's kind of a typical yield for us. And a lot of people associate taro with flooded fields. Well, this variety does quite well in normal garden conditions. This is our new farm, and this is our first season growing in this bed. And really, it's just sandy soil with amendments on top. And it is important to point out there's irrigation here, and I irrigate most days, kind of like you would a vegetable crop. During the rainy season, I can dial that back. But this would not be successful without supplemental irrigation unless you're in a much more wet area. This is a very dry part of the state, and we're up on a dry hill. So this variety does well in those conditions, and they're pretty productive. It's actually pretty comparable to our sweet potato yield per square foot we've discovered in our beds. So these were planted as roughly 3-ounce planting pieces, which I'll show a good planting piece, somewhere in like the 2nd or 3rd week of February. And I plant them really deep, and that's important to plant them deep. And then so it's like a 7-month crop, and they start to pop out sometime in mid-March, and we know they're ready to harvest when the plant starts to die down. So it's almost gone. There's very little foliage left. In midsummer, these were getting to be 5 feet tall or so with really large leaves. And then as they begin to go into dormancy, the new leaves coming out get smaller and smaller and smaller until the thing whittles away to nothing. And that's when it's time for us to dig these up. I'm gonna grab my fork and show here. Hopefully this one has a good yield. They're actually pretty easy to harvest because it's all in one cluster. So this is kind of a typical side piece around the main. These are called corms. This is the main corm, and then this is a typical side piece, which is about the size of a potato. And this is a perfect piece for planting right here. Maybe even a little too big. But the thing about these is that the larger the planting mass is, the larger you can expect a yield in that season off of them, because a large planting piece takes off and immediately gets really big. And the trick with these really is that the larger the plant is, the larger the yield is. So there's one. They're kind of loosely connected. Okay, so here's the main one. Not bad. This thing probably weighs, I don't know, 2 pounds or something. There's still more. Here's one. There's more even still. Really comb around and make sure you get them all. And it's inevitable that a few little tiny pieces will survive in this bed, and we'll try to resprout next year. And those never really grow that well because they're a tiny little planting piece. But just here, of these small pieces, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So almost 20 side pieces, and then the main one. So I don't have a scale with me, but you can kind of see this is really a pretty good yield. You know, I'm not even holding all of them. It's really a pretty good yield. And I space these in the bed. I triangulate plant them. It's a 4-foot wide bed. So every 2 feet I have one on this side, and every 2 feet I have one on that side, and they're about 18 inches apart between the rows, or maybe 20 inches, so they kind of zigzag across the bed. So for every linear bed foot, there's one taro plant. So let's say this is 6 pounds, which has been about average for us on a good plant in the past. You know, so if you have a 10-foot bed and you're getting a 6-pound yield per every linear bed foot, you could get 60 pounds of taro out of a 10-foot bed, assuming everything goes just right. So I think that's a pretty good yield. And they come in before the yams and cassava are available, so they're kind of a nice, start pulling up another one. They're kind of a nice stopgap measure while you're waiting for some of those other root crops. Pretty good yield on this one too. That's a nice. Okay, so there could be in this patch some with a higher yield, some with a lower yield, but they seem to average out to 5, 6, or even 7 pounds per plant. There's more. Okay, so I got this nice pile from just 2 plants. And these store really well too, so we'll be eating these for, you know, 4 months or something. And it's really a lot like a potato, and a great alternative to potato that we can grow in Florida. What's nice about these compared to, say, yams or cassava is those tend to be really large plants, and may not be as suited to some people in more of a residential type setting. And this is a really nice kind of well-behaved plant. And it's also very ornamental, and they're really fun to grow because they add a really big tropical type of aesthetic to the garden, kind of like bananas do. So we will be selling these. We'll sell bulbs that are in the range of this on the small end up to this. And around the 2nd or 3rd week of February, depending on where you live, it's time to plant these. They'll pop right up, and hopefully other people will be able to have the same success we've had with this variety. So thank you for watching.